Brian, there are more than 6 million businesses in the United States with one or more people, and probably that figure is growing because more and more people are wanting to start a business. So if you're wanting to start a business, where would you start? What's the first step?
Yeah, I wanted to cover this topic because obviously 6 million businesses, that's quite a few. And post-COVID world that we're in now, you're right, a lot of people have figured out, you know, I could run this business myself. I can get customers because there's a lot of demand out there for services and goods and services that wasn't there pre-COVID, and there's less people doing work. A lot of people resigned and so forth, and so a lot of businesses are going to get started up, and a lot of them are going to fail. I do know, I remember the stats used to be, 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5 new businesses fail. And so before you get to that point where you're going to fail, I wanted to have this discussion about maybe the 10 things you would have to consider when starting a new business.
I would think that when you're starting a new business, one of the first things that you have to do is do some market research, determine whether or not there's a need for what you have.
Yeah, you got to make sure that your business, you have a good idea. You vetted that if it's in a particular location, the location is right. There's a lot of stuff that goes into vetting that, but make sure that your business makes sense, and that we did another thing called the Entrepreneur's Wheel, where making sure you've got financing, cash flow, profitability, timing, and management, accounting, all these different things that you need for a successful business. So do vet your idea first.
Is it important to have a business plan? Can you get off the ground and be successful without one?
Well, I guess you could get lucky. You could probably fly your airplane without a flight plan and get lucky. I mean, you can do anything without a plan, but you're probably 10 to 100 times more likely to succeed if you have a business plan put together. And what the plan is also is to looking for the fatal flaw. You actually want to find it. Find it before it's going to ruin your business. Don't just ignore it because, I don't want to even look at that part of my business. It might make me say no. Well, maybe you need to say no to a particular business. Try and look for the fatal flaw. Engage other people to help you try and find that before it's too late.
Can you start a business with no money and hope to make it, as you move along, or should you have some money in the bank? In other words, how do you determine how much you should fund your business before you get started?
Well, that'd be part of the business plan. You would figure that out. If you can have the best idea in the world, but if you don't have cash flow and you run out of money before you get it off the ground, then it's going to fail. So that's a good example there. And you might say, okay, maybe I need a partner with some money, or an SBA loan, or some other method of funding it. Sometimes businesses, absolutely, they can be started with no money. One of the best ways to start a business for a younger person is to buy in using your sweat equity. So I'm sitting here right now as the owner of businesses. I did not start necessarily, the CPA firm here was someone else's. I bought into that firm without a down payment. So there are ways to get into business without any cash up front.
Is there an advantage to going with a franchise, something that is known, and owning a franchise versus starting something from scratch?
There can be. In certain industries you kind of have to, but for the most part, a lot of people kind of regret that at some point, saying, gosh, I'm paying them a lot of money, I'm locked in, I really don't have a lot of freedoms here. So it can be tough, but there's certain businesses that kind of require a franchise. And I mentioned your location is highly important. The fun part is like selecting the name and logos and websites and all that. So that's the fun part. But it's the not fun part that you got to look at. Like I said, the financing, making sure you have a profitable business. I mean, make sure the numbers work. Don't be too aggressive with your projections because something's going to go wrong. Lots of things may go wrong. So if you just have a rosy projection, I've seen these. They're like, oh wow, you're gonna sell muffin tops, and your projection says you'll be worth $100 million in 5 years. I don't know about that. Make sure that your projections make sense.
There are a lot of good technicians out there, and let's use the example of a bakery. Someone may bake a good pie, but they don't know anything about running a business. Is it more important to be a business person versus a technician?
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, I talked to the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. We had a 3-hour dinner, and I was talking about this great idea my client had, and he said, well, that's about 15% of the equation. I said, what do you mean? It's a great idea. But great ideas are all over the place. Do you have a great business plan? The other 85% had nothing to do with the idea. It was about those other areas like quality control and timing and finance and so forth, you know, blue ocean strategy ideas, that kind of thing. And so just an idea alone is not even nearly enough. So a great baker may not be great at HR and hiring people and financing and figuring out where the best location is and negotiating and contracts, and may not have a lot of money for equipment and may not be a good marketer. So, you know, I'm baking great stuff, but no one knows I'm here. Okay, well, you're probably not going to sell it. Maybe you bake something great, you sell it for $10, but it costs you $12 to make it. You're not profitable. So there's so many things that can trip you up, and that's why I want to say, make sure you look at all these things before you start your business.
Brian, you touched on it a little bit there. So many people start a business and they keep it a secret. They're in an offbeat location. You can't find them. I mean, how important is marketing and advertising?
Well, it's huge. And I'll use me as an example. I remember sitting in this exact chair thinking once upon a time that I know so much, I could help so many people, and I feel like the best kept secret in the state. No one knew I was here, and that's when I started the radio show, and that's why I'm doing things like this video recording and you know, webinars. That's why I was on CNBC Closing Bell, and that's why I got the word out and did my own version of marketing. And because of that, a lot of people know what I can do, and I'm not the best kept secret anymore. So marketing was even important for somebody that graduated accounting in college. You wouldn't think accountants need to market, but everybody does if you're going to have a business.
That's right, and having a website is so important too. That's equivalent to the business card today, right?
That is the business card today. If you don't have that, I'm thinking, are you even serious about your business? Because, you know, it used to be, oh, I have a business card and a yellow page ad. Well, that's not enough. Oh, now I have a website. That's not enough. I mean, that's a minimum requirement. You got to get out there, and that's why I'm a strong believer in video. I remember I used to send out quarterly commentaries, market commentaries, and I'd type them out, spend a lot of time on it. We looked at the stats, and maybe 5 to 15% of people opened them. When I switched that to video emails and sent those out instead, the number went well above 50% open rate. So I was like, okay, videos are important, so that's why I'm communicating in that fashion right now.
Brian, thanks for telling us about starting a new business.